are going live. Yeah, we're live. So, yeah, the Olympics are still going. No more horse dancing to watch today that I could find. I was looking for it again.
Yeah, but
Dressage,
we did
Kevin?
watch a guy who ran like a racehorse yesterday.
Yeah, I saw that. Kevin, your thoughts on dressage as an
On
Olympic?
dressage, I will watch it if you put an American logo on yes. You know what I like most about the Olympics is,
Yeah.
like every 4 years I become an expert in wrestling, in,
Yes.
in canoeing, and kayaking,
Yeah.
track and field. We follow it as if it's the NFL or the
I know.
NHL, and we just totally get into it.
This is the most I've ever been into an Olympics, and Mike is not into this one at all. It's really funny.
Well, yeah, but I'm into the Winter Olympics. I've never really been into the Summer Olympics that much. I mean, I mean, going back to like 1984, I remember the Mary Decker Zola Budd controversy, but the Summer Olympics doesn't really hold that much of a excitement for me. The funny thing is, Kevin, is like the basketball, which is, I mean, hockey is arguably one of the prominent sport in the Winter Olympics, along with skiing and figure skating. I've barely seen anything in terms of coverage for basketball, or at least excitement for basketball for men or women, because the U.S. is so dominant that I think there's no real excitement there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. Because it's all, as Americans generally we like to root for an underdog.
Yeah.
So you're torn. I mean, you want the Americans to do well. If you're an NBA fan, you want the NBA players to be successful. On the other hand, in order to make it interesting, you need someone to post a big upset because it feels like now it's not the same because the landscape is completely different. But it would take a 1980 style Miracle on Ice type, victory is what it feels like. And for that reason. But I have always been fascinated by the Olympics. I've said before, of all the things I've covered in my career, I've enjoyed my Olympic experiences the most because it's, when you're there, and even when you're watching on television, I think you're keenly aware that the importance and the significance and the notoriety that the athletes receive and the attention that the events receive is so much bigger than anything we know. I mean, it's like a Super Bowl every day. In terms of, billions, literally billions of people watch on television because across the world, everybody watches. And that's certainly not true of anything that's, totally American. I think the Super Bowl has some international acclaim, but, not like the Olympics. So it's a huge, huge event. And when you're there, you feel like you're a part of something. It's hard to believe, but I've had some incredible moments at Olympics. My favorite one, I think I may have told this before, is my all-time favorite question was at an Olympic event when covering the press conference of a water polo final, and I wish I could remember the countries. It was the 1996 water polo final press conference, and a guy raises his hand, a member of the media, and he says, "My question is for the goalkeeper of whomever it was." He said, "You are a disgrace to your country. How do you respond?" It was my all-time favorite question ever directed at an.
You have not told that story. That's amazing.
I don't think there's ever been. And the funny part of the story is the goalkeeper actually responded. He said, "I could have been better than I was today." He took it in stride. But that was the question. And they put it on the quote sheet too. I kept the quote sheet for years. Because the question was, you are a disgrace to your country, how do you respond?
Just when you think guys like Steve Simmons are hard journalists, I mean, just go with that, forget about everything else.
Well, two moments in this Olympics that I will say were either brought some humor for me or some appreciation of what the what the judges at the Olympics decided to do. One was there was a diver from, I believe it was Malaysia, who, and it was off one of the platform dives, and he screwed up so badly that he essentially did a belly flop from about 30 feet.
Yep.
and that's been I cracked up. I mean, I said I can now join the Malaysian dive team because that's what I would probably do from 30 feet. The thing yesterday was the interference on the 4x100 meter relay that the U.S. I think it was a Brazilian runner tangled with a U.S. runner in the second leg of the 4x100 relay, and they missed the baton pass, and because of that, the U.S. team didn't finish the race, or at least they ended up finishing much later. What they decided to do was let the U.S. team run the 4x100 relay on their own and get their time because there was interference, and they ended up with the fastest time. So I don't know if the gold medal race was not yesterday or is today, but at least they recognize the interference.
Yeah, and then that's something that you don't see. And I mean, I've been watching a lot of volleyball, both beach volleyball and indoor volleyball, which I'm really into the men's indoor volleyball right now. That's like the one that's crazy fun to watch. I mean, there's so much strategy.
Let me report that the Americans have tied it up against Italy. It's 1-1.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, and they were down 1-0 in that.
I mean, that's just we've gotten to know all those players. It feels like we've watched so many. I mean, the best thing about the Olympics now though is the NBC app. I mean, it's just like the fact that you can sit there and watch any. And I know you think I work for NBC and I don't, but I've been saying this every day. But honestly, if you have a Chromecast on your TV, you can sit there with which you can get for like $25. You can sit there with your tablet and watch any event you want to at any time on your television, and that's just like. To me, we've watched everything. You know what I've really gotten into too is like the 8-woman synchronized swimming last night was awesome. I mean, just like, and I guess I have a friend who coaches that at University of Penn, and I know it's a strange sport, but the camera angle that they have when they show you the underwater thing, the side camera angle, where you can see them what they're doing above, but you can also see what they're doing below, is just intense. I mean, what they're doing is phenomenal. I mean, how they're holding we would die. I mean, they're holding their breath for that long. It's incredible. I mean.
I share that. I watched that with my wife, and we both commented. And now, they hurl people out of the water, they project them out of the water, and they, do things that's really advanced. I got to add this though, as I was hearing, what interested Mike, someone getting embarrassed and a controversy.
Yes.
I think it really shows that our contrasting personalities. Yes. The thing that I have been struck by the most is, there's no crying in baseball, but there's crying every day at the Olympics.
Yeah.
Every day we got to cry, and we've had so many emotional moments in here. The two track runners going down and one stopping to help the other, and then the track association or the IOC, whomever, ruled that they could both come back and compete in the final, which to me was the proper thing to do. Now, as it turned out, the woman, the American, suffered an ACL and wasn't able to compete. But the fact they would do that, and there's been so many. I watched yesterday as a Japanese wrestler was so inconsolable after losing. And to me, as I watched all these things, and one thing that strikes me about Olympics versus the pro sports, which I love, is the fact that emotion, even though it's part of pro sports, it's not like it is in the Olympics. In the Olympics, your chance comes around every 4 years.
Yeah.
And it's like, we'll get them tomorrow. Well, tomorrow's a long way away, and you're not even guaranteed that you'll be a part of the sport. So when you get your chance, and like a guy had a false start in track, and he was done. It was over.
Yeah, I know. I was watching that with the with women's javelin throwing the other day. The same kind of thing, like devastation. Like if they would make a mistake. And you're right. This is their one shot, right? So this is it.
Yeah.
And I mean that I was like, I'm like you, Kevin. I'm a sap, and I would watch the woman from Great Britain who won the silver on the trampoline. Did you watch that event? That's another great, crazy, fun event. The trampoline.
I didn't see that. No.
Yeah, she wins the woman from Canada wins the gold again. Remember, she was the only one who won a gold in London. Was the trampoline woman from Canada? That was the only Canadian gold. She, I think they have a couple this time, but she won the gold again. And then this woman from Great Britain, who was like completely out of it, like she was like the 12th contestant, got second, and that jump usually doesn't happen in events like that, So she was just overwhelmed by the fact that she got second. And then the woman who got third from China, honestly, was better than all of them, and no one could understand why the judges. And she just went out there and rocked it, and it was just like assumed that she was going to win. and she finished in third. So that is the one thing I don't like. I have a niece who's in very competitive gymnastics, and that's the one thing that makes me crazy about this kind of stuff is the judging, the way it works, and how crooked that feels like it could be, even if it isn't. It would, as a parent of a kid in that kind of a sport, I think I would lose my mind.
Yeah, although I would say, as someone who's watched the Olympics for, multiple decades, it has improved because, it's a little more clear now because of computerized scoring, what they were judging. So it's more transparent because of that.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean there isn't imperfections, because there clearly is, but, it is better than it used to be where, if you had the Eastern Bloc judges, sort of lining up behind the Romanian and the Russian gymnasts and so forth.
Right.
It was, and the worst was boxing in the old days when, the Americans would come through in the days of, Sugar Ray Leonard and all that, where you'd watch a boxing match, and when the scoring was over, even just a peripheral fan like myself would look and say, was I watching the same boxing match that those judges were? Because, it'd be so different. But what? I watched a cycling race and the American, and I remember where she was from. It might have been from the Netherlands, and she was going downhill at about 50 miles an hour and went over the handlebars, and then the American led until the final 100 yards, and then got passed by 3 people. Didn't even get a medal. And just the raw emotion of all these, sports, and watching the beach volleyball. I can't remember her name now. The 38-year-old who's won 3.
Walsh Jennings, I think her last name.
Yeah, that's right. For them to lose against a Brazilian team, such an emotional thing, and we don't really give a fig newt about any of these sports, and until they're Olympics.
No, I know.
That come along. So I think the Olympics do for me exactly what they're intended, which is to get me excited about the pure athletic competition that's inspired mostly by the desire to be the best in their particular sport, and not motivated by, or less motivated, because it's not, sure, there's money involved too, but less motivated than by
I agree. And Mike, if you don't understand that now, you're dead inside. That's all I can
No. But for me, after the Olympics, it just marks the fact that training camp and the hockey season are 2 weeks closer.
Well, there you go. And speaking of that, we will start the show.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, here we go. Sorry. Hello, Hockey World. It's Thursday, August 19th, 2016.
I'm Michael Agello.
Kevin Allen, USA Today Sports.
Does he have a move now, Mike? Is that a thing?
The Usain Bolt pose.
Yeah,
okay.
I knew what it was. I knew what it was, but
I missed it.
It was too insulting to even give.
For a second, Mike, I thought you were Usain Bolt. It just completely. You became Usain Bolt to me. And I'm Eklund, and you're watching the Hockey BuzzCast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in on the hockey comings and goings. Or right around here. We're a little bit late today, but we are late with good reason. And remember, this podcast here is sponsored by you, the listeners, who can go to patreon.com/hockey and support us. And we very much appreciate more and more of you doing this all the time. We're going to have a special show for you guys on Monday. Russ is out today, so we thought we wanted to get Jillian and one involved in one of these special shows because lots of people have questions for her, of course, So we're gonna get Jillian involved. But as you know, the special shows we've been doing have been great. We've been bringing people on. Last week we had a really great guy from South Korea on here who was a professor over there who watches the show, and he was on with us talking Penguins and Bruins. And but we have to start because it's the law. And I want to personally thank Jimmy Vesey for this week's paycheck because Jimmy Vesey kept us going this week at Hockey Buzz, I think. And I know we're all sick of it. In fact, I put up a poll asking how sick of it everyone was on Twitter. And just to see, my poll was a pretty simple question. The question was, I care about Vesey because A, I really want him on my team. B, I really want my enemies not to get him on their team. Or C, I just don't care. 32% of you, several thousands of you voted. 32% said that you want them on your team. 14% said you want your enemies to fail, which I totally respect. And 54% just don't care. But still, that's if you can get 46% of the hockey world caring on July 19th, you'll go for that. That's how I see it. So we're going to talk about Jimmy Vesey, and now the latest is and I want to get your opinions on this all, Kevin. I know that probably no one has any inside information here. I don't know. You might, but the latest is that now that I've heard, at least, is it's down to a original 6 team. That is so. That brings us to 4: Chicago, New York, Boston, Toronto. Kevin, you've heard anything about this at all?
Well, I have not heard that. I heard this morning from a reasonable source, a guy who was sort of in the mix, that they were told this morning that he hadn't made up his mind. That's the only information that I had.
That's the official.
And let's try to put this into perspective, because I think it's really sort of gotten blown out of perspective. Vesey is an excellent college player, and most scouts believe that he's ready to play in the NHL now. But boy, the way he's being promoted, it feels like he's going to step in and be a contender in the scoring race. And I caution everyone not to put such incredible pressure on this kid that he won't be able to perform. I mean, we've seen several examples of players that Schultz. Being best among them, who were exceptional college players. I mean, they were giving Schultz the Norris Trophy before he played a game in Edmonton, and it didn't work out. Now I think he's found a home in Pittsburgh and is playing well. But I think VC, based on what I've been told from scouts and from GMs, is the real deal, to be sure. But I don't know that he is quite at the level that fans seem to be suggesting he is in their emails and so forth to me. And I think for him, he's got to be in such a difficult position, because there's no right answer here. Like, where should he go? I don't know. It's where he wants to go. But the problem is they all seem like, if he goes to Pittsburgh, he could, I'm sure they're telling him he can play with Crosby, because they certainly have a position there. If he goes to New Jersey, he can be part of an organization that's sort of growing, and he'll be in a bus league down there, in a bus division, which would be better. He can go to his hometown. I mean, he's been playing at Harvard, so he's familiar with the Boston area. He can play with the Bruins. He could go to Sabres and play with his good friend Jack Eichel. His dad belongs to the Toronto Maple Leafs as a scout. His brother's there, and they've got a good young team. So there are a lot of really good options for him, and there's none that are better than the others. I've seen people saying, well, he's got to do this because of, well, he doesn't have to do anything. And I don't, I've been in this game a long time, and I don't see any of these options that are better than any other options. I mean, they're all just really good options.
I know, and what I said yesterday, and I kind of said half-heartedly, of course, not half-heartedly, half-jokingly, quite full-heartedly, is that I feel like what the NHLPA should try to negotiate next time around is not a higher free agent number, not a higher salary cap, not guaranteed contracts, but just the opportunity to give every UFA their own week in the off season. If they had their own week in the off season, they would all sign way bigger contracts, and we'd all be talking about them way more. Because I mean, the reality is Vesey's had the whole hockey world to himself for a while now.
Yeah.
And that's causing this. I mean, that's really, and it's not really his fault, but the reality is that's what's happening, I think, and it's not his fault at all, to be honest. And in a way, he, not to say he's going to be a victim of it, but it's a tough spot to be in. I mean, it reminds people are bringing up like Fabian Brunstrom, or they're bringing up these Matt Gilroy. Remember these other
Gilroy? That's another good one, sure.
Like bidding wars that came on.
Jonas Gustafsson in Toronto.
Yeah, right.
And sold as the monster, being this larger-than-life goaltender who put up ridiculous stats in the Swedish league, and then he came to the NHL and was, I would say, an average goaltender. I mean, I think that the expectation game can't be avoided because of, right now, like you said, there's a vacuum, and Jimmy Vesey has filled it for the last, at least the last week, but going even back 6 to 9 months. But honestly, I mean, and Kevin mentioned Justin Schultz. It was set up even better for Justin Schultz to succeed, because if you remember when he signed, I believe that was the lockout year. He played in Oklahoma City for half a year in the AHL with Taylor Hall and a couple other of the young Oilers. And it wasn't throwing him to the wolves in the NHL. It was actually giving him a half a season in the AHL, and he still struggled. So, I mean, the thing is, I think it's inherently unfair, and it's unavoidable. But wherever he goes, people are going to expect him to score 20 to 25 goals right off the bat. And I think, this is a kid who's 23. He's coming out of college. He's a very good hockey player. There's going to be some adjustment time. It's going to take a little time to acclimate himself to the NHL. Even if he's playing with a guy like Austin Matthews in Toronto or Jack Eichel in Buffalo, it's going to take him time to get used to the NHL and the difference in the skill level between that and college. So I think it's going to be unfair, and he may face some criticism, but I think there's no way to avoid it, unfortunately.
I mean, that's fair. I just think the buildup has been bigger than you would normally see, because there's always, when you're alone in the marketplace in terms of being unrestricted as he is,
right.
Your ability in terms of perception grows tenfold because he's the only guy available like this. If there were 5 guys like him, we wouldn't have the same measure, but there's just one. There's just him, and because he's been a scorer, that's another thing too. If he was a stay-at-home defenseman, we wouldn't be talking like this, but he's a scorer. So, but the bottom line is it's been fun. It's nothing.
No, it's interesting. I mean, and because there are many different angles you can take on it, and it's been fun really watching people tweet out their thoughts on it too, because it's actually been very silly to me. Like, there are a lot of people have very good sense of humor. You're getting all these crazy memes about what Jimmy Vesey looks like when he's making his decisions and stuff like that. And that's a lot of fun. And now the latest thing that I was just texted is we're not going to get a decision today, but over the weekend.
Right.
So
his agent came out. I mean, because
yeah,
there was a report that came out earlier this morning that it was down to 2 teams, and the agent came out a little while ago, an hour ago, and said there may not be a decision till Saturday. So that's consistent with what Kevin said, that he just simply hasn't made up his mind yet. So, yeah, I mean, the last thing that you want to do if you're Jimmy Vesey, I mean, and I know that you've been given enough time. You've obviously been thinking about this for a while. Now you've had maybe 48 to 72 hours to mull over the offers from the different teams. The last thing you want to do is make the wrong decision, because this is your free shot. Once you sign that deal, that team, whoever you choose, I mean, you're going to be locked into that team. They're going to have, you'll be an RFA. You'll be an RFA with arbitration rights, but you're going to be locked in for 4, 5, 6 years, whatever it is, before he becomes a UFA. So this is his one shot to choose his future and choose where he wants to be.
Yeah.
But what's interesting too, I think the Penguins winning last season with the personnel they did also has enhanced his value. And the reason I say that is because we watched Connor Sheary play with Sidney Crosby. Now, Sheary played a significant role in their championship, and I think played was very opportunistic and had some moments in the playoffs where he was a clear contributor to their success. But should he be Sidney Crosby's winger? Like, not in most seasons, not as a matter of course. Do you have a inexperienced winger who doesn't offer at this point in his career much beyond his speed and his offensive touch that he has to go with it? So my point of all this is, now you have teams looking around saying, look, the Penguins won the Cup with Connor Sheary playing on the top line,
right?
And Vesey is a better scorer than Sheary,
right?
So you bring him in. What could we do? If we have a guy like that. So I think, and watching Brian Rust. So college player. We've seen other college players have some success now. They've had it for a long time. But I'm just saying, just because of circumstances, they're more in the news lately. So for that reason, I think it just sort of enhances. It just adds another layer to it.
Kevin, can I just ask? I mean, because we're talking about the fact that VC and other college free agents, they come onto the market on August 15th, and how that separates them from just everyday run-of-the-mill UFAs. I know I've heard a lot of stuff about there being a change in the CBA when the next one comes up about closing this loophole. Do you think it would be simply just have these guys become UFAs or have these guys qualify for free agency on July 1st with everybody else, or do you think they want to just close this window?
Well, I mean, I think they'd like to close it, but you got to believe the players are going to fight that. I mean, it's really been a win-win situation for college players. Because once they end, you can almost feel it. If you don't get the guy out pretty quickly, he's going to sort of play out his option, for the lack of a better phrasing, and go elsewhere. So, to me, it's surprising that they allowed that sort of back end. I mean, it feels like an advantage that college players have that, obviously the CHL players don't have. So.
Well, we think it probably has everything to do with the fact that they can't sign any kind of thing, right? They can't. So where junior players can sign contracts, right, even though they don't actually get them. So I think it has to do with that, right? So that's why that exists. So I don't know what they can really do about it, to be honest. Like, I think that it's more of a college thing where they can't really fix it. I don't think. But anyway, we'll see. I mean, Neil Smith has come out and said that he heard the Rangers and the Blackhawks are the two teams as well. Just to throw that out there, it's on Twitter. And that he also kind of confirmed what I had said. He heard the same thing. Probably talked to the same person for all I know about that he heard an original 6 team as well. That it was definitely original 6 team. I don't know. I think all of this is. I mean, I think the agent's playing it right. Vesey's going to wait till the weekend.
Well, there's a spot on the Blackhawks top line as well, Jonathan.
Right, and that's got to be incredibly tempting for a guy who's going to sign a 1-year deal.
Yeah, you can just Stan Bowman's a good recruiter, as we know. So, I mean, you could certainly see that. Saying all that, I don't really have any inside information. I mean, as I said, all of those options are so attractive.
Yeah, I don't think he can make a bad decision.
No, I mean, there's just too many good situations available for him, and that he really can't go wrong. And that's probably, what his agents have to be telling him, because he's probably struggling with it. They're saying, look, you can't go wrong, so just do what your heart tells you to do, because you really, and there is no absolute. We're never going to know whether it was the best decision or the perfect decision, because you just don't know. So do it and hope it works. I mean, Mike was right on in his analysis that he does have to give it plenty of thought and not be haphazard about it, because he's going to be obligated to this team for a lengthy period. But he should be at least heartened by the fact that it's not like some players who are faced with 2 options and they're both bad.
Right. I mean, I got a couple funny texts. One player texted me, "It's times like this I'm really happy I just went to the team I was drafted and just called it a day."
I mean,
one player said that. He just said, I'm really happy.
And you can see that. How many people watching today have been in situations where they've agonized over a job decision?
Yeah.
I mean, everybody can relate to this, not at the level that Vesey is in terms of picking between NHL teams, but we've all had situations where we've had to do one thing or another. Maybe we've had several options, and then suddenly you've got to decide, and it's not easy. So, I mean, we can all be somewhat sympathetic toward, trying to decide, what to do with your life. And, this is his life. This is his career. So, cut the kids a break and let them, if it takes 7 days or 10 days, just let them do his thing.
I mean, nothing has to happen tomorrow. Moving on to the other stuff that's going around in the NHL. The Vegas team will not be called the Nighthawks. That's official now. That is not going to happen. I had heard, but of course, the Blackhawks were not happy about this concept in the beginning, and I couldn't imagine why not. I said, hey, Chicago already shares the term Sox with Boston in baseball. Why can't they share the term Hawks with? But original 6 team. I'm not surprised that this happened. I don't know. I thought it was a cool name.
I saw the Nighthawks thing, and I saw it unless there was some strong origin to it. I saw just speculation. Somebody saying, hey, maybe it'll be Nighthawks because he likes night and he liked Hawks. And then next thing I know, it was like everywhere that it was going to be that. I never really saw anything where anybody even reported that was actually going to be it. I just saw speculation of
I think that might have been how it started. I don't know, but I called the Blackhawks to see what they thought of that. And
All I know is that
it's a no.
it's come out in the last couple weeks that Bill Foley doesn't want the name to be anything like slithery, like vipers or snakes or anything like that.
Nothing gambly.
Nothing gambling.
Nothing slithery. Nothing gambly.
No aces. No 21s. No anything like that. Now he can't go Black Knights because the London Knights will sue him. He can't do Hawks because the Chicago Blackhawks or the Atlanta Hawks might sue him.
Why can't he do Black Knights?
Well,
yeah, this came out that the London Knights weren't allowing that. That apparently they had some kind of copyright in Canada. Yeah. Or trademark in Canada, and the Black Knights, and I found that really hard to understand.
I do too.
But that was the report, right? That was everywhere. That was pretty. I thought, it seemed like legitimate. I agree with you. I mean, I thought the London, that was, and that's why I brought up the Blackhawks. I'm like, if the London Knights don't want Knights, you certainly don't want Night Hawks. I mean, that to me, that was completely.
Well, I'm not a. It'd be interesting, and we probably have some lawyers. Watch who could be able to explain this. But I always thought that as long as you weren't in the same business, which the London Knights and the and the Las Vegas NHL team are not in the same business in terms of, one's a junior hockey league and one's an NHL, then, you could still do it. But obviously if they were scared of that, then that's probably not the case. But it'd be interesting, anybody who's a expert on having the rights to the naming rights, how that works.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we have somebody out there, please do email us. That would be good. Email Eklund@hockeybuzz.com. We'll talk about it. This is definitely taking a lot longer than any other team we've had enter the NHL for a while, as far as names go. I mean, it doesn't really much matter.
Well,
but
here's the problem. In the old days, like, it wasn't the end of the world. Like, you wouldn't really know, other than if the newspaper ran some sort of poll in the paper or what everything. Now we know instantly, within 12 seconds, what everybody thinks about it. So
right, that's true. And they ran a whole poll in our newspaper in Vegas, right? They got people involved.
And because of that, I think there's a lot more. I'm sure they've done a lot of their homework on it as well. So and
they may have a full scouting staff, management staff, and coaching staff before they have a team name.
Yeah.
Where it's going.
Yeah, that looks very possible. And I mean, it doesn't really much matter, but it's definitely something that everyone seems to be very interested in talking about. An interesting signing today, kind of a big signing actually. Sean Monahan extended in Calgary for 7 years at like a $6.3 million AAV. That's very significant. I mean, that's like someone compared it to around Nathan McKinnon's number, which is
slightly higher. So 6.35. So
has Sean Monahan earned this kind of contract yet? I mean, he's a good player for sure, but
why not? I mean, that's the market to me.
Yeah,
he is to them what Nathan McKinnon is to Colorado. So
true.
He's a very valuable player. He's a a rugged center. He's got some size to him. There's logic to the deal.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, I guess. I mean, Gaudreau, you'd think was going to get more than this, right? So.
Well, no, not see that, and that's the thing I find interesting here. I was almost expecting them to sign them in tandem, like the Hawks did with Kane and Taves,
right.
Even before the big $10.5 million contract, when they got their lengthy deal after the entry-level deals, they signed at the same time for basically the same amount. And I would have thought with the two prominent RFAs like that, the Flames would have tried to get them locked up both at the same time. To me, that I question whether that means they think that Gaudreau is worth as much. Is it the fact that Monahan's the number one center? He scored 30 goals. He played as an 18-year-old. Gaudreau is a little older. He played U.S. college hockey. He's jumped on the scene. He's played, I think, 2 seasons.
Top 10 scorer though, Gaudreau.
Yeah, I know, and I think he's a necessity for that team. So I mean, I think his value is relatively close to Monahan, but I'm just taken a little back by the fact that they didn't announce them both at the same time, which means either he's looking for a longer deal, looking for more money, or they want to get him at a different price point. It'll be interesting to see how long it takes for them to get him signed.
Yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts on Goudreau in there? Do you think Goudreau is more going to get more, Kevin?
Well, he might. He's older. He's a little bit
Yeah.
because of that, but it will depend on the years because by announcing the Monahan deal, they've established sort of a precedent here. So
Yeah.
and they've sort of have to. You got to be able to defend the money and the length. So maybe if he goes longer, what was Monahan's deal? Because
7 years,
Or
6
7 years, 7 years. Sorry, yeah, 7 years.
yeah, so he's not going to go longer.
It could go 8, but that's
Good, but I just don't think he would.
yeah,
Maybe he'd go shorter to get another kick at the can, thinking, if he becomes an even greater player. I don't know what they're thinking on it. These kind of things. I always say that it's not like he's going anywhere. He's going to get signed at some point. Now what we should say in these situations, if Steven Stamkos can end up staying with the Tampa Bay Lightning, then Robbie Goudreau is not going anywhere either. I mean, because he's restricted.
I'll buy that. I'll buy that. Now, apparently, Alex Steen is out of the World Cup of Hockey as well. This comes down, he's hurt, and he's being replaced by Raquel, right?
Yep.
Who's also without a contract, which is...
He's also without a contract, right.
And that
Seen's a big loss for Sweden, don't you think? I mean, I think that he's a
North American player, North American style. Feisty and good two-way player. That's it's a significant loss. I mean, you'd certainly rather have Steen than Raquel, who's certainly a good player, but Steen is a pretty respected player around the NHL.
I totally agree. Somebody sent me this. I love this too. This. I guess Matt Murray put this out. Actually, somebody sent me his Twitter of this, but this is pretty cool. This would be Matt Murray's Team North America mask. How about that? That's pretty neat. I like that. I think this is my favorite of the new-ish teams jerseys. I like this logo. Very Game of Thronesy to me, but it's like the North American team.
Yeah, I mean the colors, the color scheme of Team North America just smacks of it's very youthful, very sort of trying to be hip, which I guess they're trying to go along with the the young aspect of that team. So I guess it makes sense, but again, I call me a skeptic. I'm looking forward to the World Cup in the sense that I want to see what the fan reaction to it will be in Toronto and throughout the hockey world, because I really when I interact with fans either in the comments on my blog or on Twitter, I don't pick up a great deal of excitement. I mean, I think there's excitement in Toronto because they want to see Austin Matthews and see Morgan Riley who for the Leafs playing for Team North America on an international stage. But I haven't picked up yet on any real excitement for the actual event.
Why am I not surprised?
Yeah. Why would you? No, I mean, there's a great article on Hockey Buzz written by Adam Proto that says, "Forget the cynics. 2016 World Cup, an experiment bound to produce thrills." So that's written for you, Mike. You should read this one.
Well, no, I'm saying I'm taking a neutral position. I'm actually looking forward to it because at least it's going to be hockey. I just want to see what the overall reaction of everybody else is, because I'm just not picking up on a level of excitement that is akin to the Olympics.
Isn't that just because it's August? I mean, it is August. I mean, and this is the kind of thing. It's kind of like when you take a vacation and you plan for it for years and everything, and it's like and then that's a great vacation. You go on and everything like that. But then when you decide you're going to take a vacation in like a week or two, and you go on that vacation instead, and that vacation is the most amazing thing you've ever had. I kind of feel like the World Cup of Hockey is going to sneak up on people like that second vacation. Like they're going to be like, okay, this is not anything. I think expectations are a little bit lower, but I think the second they start watching these things unfold, I think it's going to be really exciting, and I think people are going to be completely into it. I mean, I think it's going to be something that I know the whole rooting interest thing does concern me to the idea of I think Team North America is better than Team USA, bothers me, but I think that there's certain things that, but at the end of the day, the quality of this, I mean, let me read you something Proto says here, because Proto says, He says, I can understand the skepticism, but if you can put aside those feelings, you should be thrilled about what's coming in short order. A never before seen, probably never seen again on ice experiment likely to create some enduring memories for hockey fans. He said, I get the skepticism. The caliber of play and accompanying passions may not be on the level of the Stanley Cup final or in Olympics games, and it's definitely not the norm to have Connor McDavid, Austin Matthews, Jack Eichel, Jonathan Drouin not representing their countries, instead playing for Team North America. Same goes for European team comprised of players. The element of nationality isn't as pure as the upcoming showdown. However, from an entertainment purpose, the 2016 World Cup could very quickly be delivered beyond expectations. Barring an NHL trade or an All-Star game, when are we going to see Eichel and McDavid wearing the same uniform ever? Skating on the same power play unit, fighting it out alongside one another at the end of a game when the stakes are high. When will Team Europe's Leon Draisaitl, Marian Hossa, and Anze Kopitar have another chance to play together ever? So this, I think he's kind of right about some of this. I mean, I think this is a hockey fan purist thing in a way.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like that, I don't know.
Yeah, here's my take on it all. I mean, I think it is similar to what we see now with, because of social media, on Yelp reviews or movie reviews, Rotten Tomatoes, because that's the way life is now. We all now, instead of just sort of taking a wait and see attitude, which I think was human nature in a previous life. Now human nature is you got to develop some level of opinion, and it's almost become trendy to be sour about things. So it is. Like I how many times did and I know you get as more than I get, but I got last year in the playoffs where I was just mesmerized by the quality of play. I'd get emails and tweets from fans saying, this is absurd, that like it's just uninteresting, and all going, and it's like we weren't watching the same thing. And I think that's happened with the World Cup. There's just going to be a segment, no matter what happens, that are going to say, we don't like the U23 or the Team Europe thing is a joke. And you know what I always say about that? When you use that expression, what that means is you have nothing intelligent to add to the argument.
Right.
You're out of debatable material, so you just say, what a joke. It's a joke. And that means that, I don't have anything else intelligent to say. So they'll start saying all that. And that's going to happen regardless of what happened. If the great Lemieux goal with Gretzky and Larry Murphy had happened in today's world, there would have been people, I guarantee it, on Twitter who would have said, that whole thing was just so overrated. There would have been negativity that would have been. Not as much, but there would have been, because that's just the way it works now. We have to have some measure, and the minority voice is amplified now by social media. So you hear that. Now, is it a legitimate story line to follow about whether or not this World Cup sells out and whether they make as much money? Absolutely it is, because that is an important issue,
right,
of whether or not the fans are going to vote with their ticket purchases. But the review of whether the concept works and all that, let's just see what the hockey looks like.
I mean, I think that
it could be entertaining, or maybe we'll get one of the greatest goals ever in the history of, and maybe we won't. But let's let it play out. I mean, I'm amazed now that it's like we're fueling the debate. That's what we tend to do now, is we're fueling the debate before anybody's even played. Let's just see.
The team that, and I said this before, the team that I'm really the most intrigued by is Team North America, because
I think that's a general thing, though. I think a lot of people feel that way, right? I mean, that's
but I think I think that's grown. But I mean, even going back to when it was originally selected, I thought that team was the most intriguing, because at first it was like, okay, how badly is this team going to get out? Their defense, or their they don't have defensive players, or their goaltending, the question marks of whether they could stay up at the level of Team USA and Team Canada. Now I think there's a legitimate chance, and maybe this is revisionist, whether I think they have a legitimate chance to win the whole thing. And how will the NHL and the planners of the World Cup react to a Team North America with the best youth of the U.S. and Canada together? How will they react going forward? if they win the whole thing. And like we've said before, I think the reaction might be to just say no. It's that we're not going to let this happen again.
It's possible. Or and after we had that discussion, I did talk to somebody in the NHL who was watching the show, and he said we would love it if the younger team won. He said it's such an easy thing to promote. He said it's just okay. You sit there and you say, all right, look at where our sport's heading. We have the greatest players in the world are yet to come. You know that this is actually on the and it doesn't play into either team either USA Hockey or Canada's hockey. Canada hockey they might not be not thrilled about it, but the NHL itself doesn't. I mean, they wouldn't have put that U23 team together if they wouldn't be happy if it won. That's what he said to me. He said we actually see it as a huge bonus if they win. I think if Team Europe were to win the whole thing, that might be a little bit surprising. But couldn't you also picture this? Like someone said this to me, and I totally could see this. Team Europe just suddenly wins a couple games that surprise everybody, and now Europe is playing Canada in the crossover game or whatever, and can you imagine all the people that would be pulling for that Team Europe all of a sudden? It would be just I mean obviously not in Canada, but Team Europe could become like this vagabond the group of players that everybody's pulling for. Right? There is the energy of what this isn't is a nationalistic event as much as it could be, as much as the Olympics is. But what it is our eight pretty good teams, right? So to me, that's what it is. What it is, you have really a much more even situation. You don't have Latvia in there or things like that. I mean, I personally would prefer to get rid of Team Europe and have like a play-in tournament where Switzerland and all these other things Latvia they try to get in and have that other spot in the World Cup be more like a typical World Cup of soccer would be, where you have to play in to get there. But I do think that as we sit there and say that could it be like an all-star game where they're not playing so hard? Nah, I don't think so. But because I think that at the end of the day, there's going to be a lot of pride in Team US not to lose to Team North America, and there's going to be a lot of pride in Team North America to show that they're fantastic because they're young, cocky kids who are in shape and are ready to go, in the beginning of the season. So, and Kevin, when we had you on last time, I asked you this question about my concept about Team Ontario, and I had an email. I've got to remember this because a guy emailed me and said, because I had said my question to you was, I like the idea of Team Ontario, Team Canada, and Team USA instead of this under 23 thing. Because I think that would create three relatively even teams based on the rosters. And you said, well, then if Team USA won, Team Canada would say, well, we won. Team USA won because we were split up and stuff like that. And he's like, well, shouldn't Team USA, if Team Canada wins this time, say the same thing? That Team USA lost their key players to North America?
Well, it's not the same. I mean, to me, it's not the same. You're talking the difference between, getting 4 players and, the whole thing would be split up under your concept. Yeah. I still think it would be a better concept to have Canada 1, Canada 2. I think I see no negative with that. I think everybody would enjoy that, and it's been a barroom argument for years and years and years that would be settled. And my only issue with the whole of whether or not the U23 team could actually win would be if they can, and I'm not sure they can. Like, it's a very talented team, but when things aren't going well, who stands up and rallies the troops? If they would win this thing, it would destroy the myth of the value of experience. Because if they can come in and defeat the greatest American and Canadian players, with guys who have very little NHL experience other than what they've done at the World Juniors, then what that says is that all the teams that are trying to load up on guys with Stanley Cup experience at the trade deadline, that strategy is misplaced, to be sure. So I don't know. I just can't. I think it's a very talented team, and I think they could be dangerous. But whether they could sustain that over the entire tournament, I think that would be difficult. But
who would you pick in a battle of North America versus Team USA?
I take USA just for the experience factor. It's still, they still got Patrick Kane, and the only thing about the American team is there's, the concern would be out at their center ice position, because all of their centers that they will count on for years and years are all on the U23 team. If the U.S. goes to Korea in 2018, many of those players that they're, the key players are on the U23 team.
Yeah. Are you starting to feel like that could happen too?
That we're going back
Yeah.
to. Yeah, I've been told not to rule it out. That there's still cards to be played, and this is all about money. And what we do know is that from all the years we've covered contract negotiations, that money issues can always be sorted out, even when it seems like they can't. So, and there's, it would be interesting if like the impact on college hockey, for example, would be really interesting if the NHL doesn't go, because now suddenly all the top college players in 2018 are all going to be on that that Olympic team. So I would think this year's draft would probably be the guys that would be most likely to be on that team.
Right, you're right. And there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of good ones. I mean, but then here's the other. Then who knows? I mean, the other. With every country, I mean, what is Russia? Russia's put together a team then that would just be KHLers, I would assume, Well,
I mean, Ovechkin's been on record as saying he'll just go.
He'll go no matter what, right? And I think didn't his owner even say that he would let him go at one point? I remember that too.
My argument has been, how are you going to stop these guys? Everybody said, well, you're going to suspend them. But yes, but when they come back, are you going to say, well, you're going to be suspended 4 more games? Because that hurts you even more.
Right. So, the funny thing is, I mean, there have been some critics that, the NHL takes off for 2 weeks. I mean, and we know that this is the OHL or the WHL, the Canadian Junior, the CHL teams, they take off about a week, but they start playing again while the World Junior is going on, but without their star players. I understand that the NHL, teams are playing without Alex Ovechkin or playing without Sidney Crosby, but it also, you wouldn't have to play that constricted schedule where you're playing more games in a shorter amount of time. For 2 weeks you're without your star players, but why not just continue the NHL season while the Olympics is going on and let the star players go?
Stakes are too high. You're talking about colleges, there's, it's just college, and the juniors, it's not a $3 billion, $4 billion industry, and there's a unfairness built in because the top teams are the teams that suffer the most. So it just can't be done, because that's certainly been brought up before, and it just doesn't have any logic to it. But it would solve some problems, because there are plenty of people within the NHL that thinks this does more harm than good, because some of the teams in the non-traditional areas have trouble restarting. The teams that count on walk-up sales, because it doesn't take much for the casual fan to go elsewhere. And there are several issues, and the other issue too is that the NHL has never sort of been able to quantify what kind of bump they actually get from sending their. I mean, some people argue, well, just as I said, so many people watch that it has to promote the game. Well, that's probably true, but it's hard to quantify. The value of that.
It is, and the fact that the NBA players still go, I think, does play into it to a degree. I mean, I think that I know Bettman does look at the NBA, and that Bettman is very aware of the other leagues, right? So that's a big thing that people don't always get.
This time around, I mean, LeBron didn't go, Steph Curry didn't go.
I know, and I think that could happen in the future too. But I think, actually, I'm going to take that back. That would not happen with hockey players, because hockey players are totally different than that, and because the competition is there. This is not a cakewalk type situation. Now, I did have one really interesting thing that came from a source.
Okay.
That I wanted to bring out, and that was that the Russians aren't happy about everything that's happening in the World Cup of Hockey, and they obviously aren't happy about their player that they couldn't bring here because he was suspended. Voinov, and that his suspicion was the Russians have a team that could go either way. They could be good. They might fall apart. They have defensive issues, obviously, but they've got great offense. And this guy's fear was that the Russians could come. Though I mean, obviously the Russians are coming to this, but that the Russians won't do this again. Like that, if the Russians don't do well in this, they'll just be like, no, we're not. Why would we do this? Like he said, the fact the Russians are doing it is a little bit of more of a coup by the NHL than you realize. He said that that just think naturally you're going to call a World Cup of hockey and everybody's going to come. He said the Russians aren't necessarily going to be everybody going to come type people. He said, and if they don't have a good performance here, they might just say, we're only going to the Olympics from now on. That would be interesting. And that would be, and you could see that. I could see that scenario in my head playing out. Like I could see them, because the NHL and the KHL have a very interesting relationship, right? It's hard to say how much they like each other.
Well, they respect each other's contracts.
Right, they do, and then they're actually working together right now. Like Pasternak's doing this thing in China right now. That's and a couple of those other Bruin I was reading about. That's a KHL NHL type joint venture, which is interesting. I thought that was kind of unique that was happening. They're running some camps in China. Mm-hmm. Pasternak and another guy from the Bruins. I can't remember his name, but that was really. But yeah, it is. The Russians. They could just say, nah, we're done. We don't want to do this. We don't have to do this. We don't have to come over there.
Well, the only thing I would say about that is I don't dispute that, because I don't have any. They're sort of they can go rogue on you for sure.
Yeah.
But even though they have some star players, they don't really even have that many NHL players anymore. They're in the 20s. So who would we miss? We'd miss Tarasenko and Ovechkin.
Yeah.
Malkin. Trying to think who else we would actually.
The goalies Varlamov and.
Yeah, I don't think we'd miss them. Would we? You think that they would be missed?
Well, Ovechkin and Malkin are two big.
Yeah, no, big names, and Tarasenko is too. I mean.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, if those NHL players didn't show up, would it be the end of the world? I mean, the tournament wouldn't be as competitive.
I mean, they could have it without Russia, but if they had it without Russia, then does this? If the NHL does have a secret inside plan to make this the alternative to the Olympics, that's not going to work if Russia doesn't come to it.
Well, what if Russia? I mean, is it they wouldn't come at all, or
that's what I was told. They wouldn't come. I was told they just wouldn't go. Like they were going to go to the Olympics only, and that this World Cup we don't acknowledge this World Cup. This is the NHL. This is an NHL thing, and that's not our thing.
Yeah. Well.
I mean, it's possible. Anything's possible, but I just thought it was an interesting person who I dealt with before. Who and like I've always said, I don't trust any source from Russia. This is just a guy who's dealt with the Russians before in putting together events like this.
There's definitely a benefit for Russian players playing in the NHL for this tournament because of the whole escrow situation, and this is hockey-related revenue, and this is money that they.
That's true.
So I mean, I'm sure the motivation.
And this is a split too. Like the PA. Right. Gets tons and tons of money out of this.
And could Russia put a team in without the Russian Hockey Federation being involved? Like, could the NHL players just go and say, okay,
that's why I thought you were gone. Like, they would just send a KHL team.
Yeah, that was a KHL.
They would pull out all together, but that,
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't know. I mean, it would hurt it. I don't know. It would really hurt it if there were no Russian team, to be sure.
Yeah, I think it would lose its ability to supplant the Olympics for sure, and that would be
It has zero chance of supplanting the Olympics.
Yeah,
zero chance. I don't care how successful.
Yeah. I mean, but that's what some of the owners tell you they wanted to do.
Well, I know that's what they want to do, but I just don't see that happening. I mean,
yeah, I agree with you. I mean, the Olympics, what we're seeing now, like there's just something about the Olympics. I mean, like what we're seeing now, and you just realize that I only covered one Olympics in my life, but it was my favorite 3 weeks ever working in sports. Like that, I agree with you. Just because, and I'm very jealous of all the Olympics you've gotten to cover, because as I'm sitting here, I'm like in Vancouver, I felt like I was like living a dream myself as a reporter at the Olympics. And it's like you think the players at the Olympics are one thing, but as a reporter at the Olympics, you feel like the same. You also feel like, because the Olympics, they treat reporters well. First off, they treat you amazingly well, and they give you, and you can go watch every event, and you can just. It was incredible. So yeah, I'm with you. But anyway, that's kind of what do we have? Anything else today, gentlemen? We can think of to talk about? I think we're pretty good, right?
No, I think we've just about covered it for the summer.
I think so. I think we're good for the summer. Yep, and that'll be that. We'll see you in September. No, we'll be back again on Monday. you know, we'll have to come up with other things
When
to talk
hopefully we have a decision on the Jimmy Vesey saga.
about. Oh yes, gosh, yes. Let's get a prediction, just for the hell of it. Come on, guys, just throw it out there. Who do you think? Where do you think he's going?
Boston.
Boston, okay. Mike?
Toronto.
I mean, I've been going Boston every day until today when my gut was telling me Chicago. So I'm going to go back to Boston too. I'm going to say Boston.
Okay.
We'll see. Remember that the Buzz, it is just hockey, folks. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll talk to you then.